Meta, the parent company of Facebook and Instagram and Threads and all that other stuff, is in complete and total meltdown mode today. They are ending their DEI programs almost entirely, not completely, but pretty close to it. They're ending their fact-checking programs. They are allowing criticism of LGBTQ plus blah, 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 blah issues, including the statement that gay people are mentally ill. They are now specifically allowing those sorts of discussions, and they are allowing vaccine skepticism on the platform. And as you might expect, the employees of Meta over in Facebook land are having a complete conniption fit over it. They are in full meltdown mode, and it is, I am not gonna lie, mildly hilarious. Now, I want to be very clear about this. This is confirmed. You may remember back in this summer, of the summer of 2024, there was a big news story that Microsoft was laying off all of its diversity, equity, and inclusion staff, and all the media was running with this story as if it was true. Unfortunately, it was false. The Lunduke Journal fact-checked it. But the good kind of fact checking, where I actually do due diligence and check with people. And I confirmed that no, that wasn't happening. Just a handful of people that technically worked in DEI lost their job. But then Microsoft went on and reaffirmed their commitment to DEI. They even started pouring millions of dollars into pronoun research. Real thing. Check that out over at the other Lunduke Journal stuff. And that really wasn't happening. This, with Meta and Facebook, confirmed by the Lunduke Journal. I've checked with sources that I have at Meta, and this is absolutely happening. I want to walk you guys through a bunch of this. There's a ton we've got to get through, so we're going to go through it kind of fast. We're going to start back in August of this year, and we're going to point out that there was a lawsuit, information requests that were occurring back in August and earlier that unveiled that Facebook had built a web censorship portal specifically for President Biden's administration. So the idea was pretty simple. I have a video back in August 27th that walks you through this, where they built a simple web portal, and President Biden's staffers, right? People like his chief of staff and whoever could log into this web portal and say, this person's talking in non-pretty ways about vaccines. We think someone should hush him up. And then then he would be censored or kicked off the platform and whatnot. And that was happening over the last several months. And as far back as August of this last year, Mark Zuckerberg, the head honcho of Facebook, he's expressed regret that he allowed his company to do that at the request or demand of the Biden administration. So we've had this information out there for a while, but the real question had been, what was Facebook going to do about it? Because Facebook had allowed itself to get essentially bullied by the Joe Biden administration into censoring Americans, saying a wide variety of topics, LGBT issues, lots of vaccine censorship. If you said, hey, I wonder if this specific vaccine might have a side effect, banned, I should point out, not by Facebook, but by the Biden administration, who demanded that Facebook build a custom web portal that allowed them to go in and censor Americans. Yeah, that's a First Amendment violation to the extreme. Oh my gosh. And it's every nightmare that you could possibly have about the government colluding with big tech to silence Americans. It is all of those nightmares. Well, now things are really starting to hit the fan. So let's walk through this step by step, because it's crazy. On January 6th, just 4 days ago, Mark Zuckerberg announced a few new people were on the board of directors for Meta, the parent company of Facebook, and one of them is Dana White. Who's Dana White, you ask? Well, he's the CEO of the Ultimate Fighting Championships of the UFC, and he's hardcore right-wing. He's real pro-Trump. You might have seen Trump and Musk and a whole bunch of other people at those UFC events. And now he's on the board of directors, right? Well, when that occurred, people internally at Meta freaked out. They took to a basically an internal discussion board to talk about this, and a lot of people started criticizing the appointment of Dana White to the board of directors of Meta. And those discussions kept getting deleted and censored. And now, after looking through it, including some reporting from 404 Media at 404media.co, they did pretty good reporting on this. I've independently confirmed at least some of this, enough to know that it's real. Quote, one employee posted, "Why do critical comments of this announcement, the Dana White announcement, keep getting deleted?" Another person said, "Lol, my comment got CEE'd too." CEE over at Meta is an abbreviation for Community Engagement Expectations. So it's an organization inside Meta that basically censors people. It basically says, here's what we can talk about, here's what we can't talk about, and then they censor people. This is internal Facebook censorship, and apparently this was happening regularly, and people were yelling and kicking and screaming all over the place, and it was nuts. Well, then the next day, January 7th, and this was rapid fire here, we have an announcement from Meta and Facebook entitled "More Speech, Fewer Mistakes." And the large takeaway that they post at the top is, starting in the US, we are ending our third-party fact-checking program and moving to a community notes model. I just want to scroll down here because I want to read one specific quote, because I think this is the one that's really going to set people off, and boy, howdy has it. Okay, quote. This is, again, from their announcement on Facebook.fb.com. "We want to undo the mission creep that has made our rules too restrictive and too prone to over-enforcement." Okay, over-enforcement is a funny way of saying crazy rampant censorship, but I'll let that one slide. Continuing, quote, "We are getting rid of a number of restrictions on topics like immigration, gender identity, and gender that are the subject of frequent political discourse and debate. It's not right that things can be said on TV or the floor of Congress, but not on our platforms. These policy changes may take a few weeks to be fully implemented." Holy heavens. You read that there? They're talking about getting rid of restrictions on topics that have gotten so many people banned. So I went and checked it out. If you go to transparency.meta.com, you can actually go in and see all the changes. So they have a hateful, in home policies, community standards, there's a hateful conduct policy details thing. And you can actually see the change log. Kudos to Facebook and Meta on this, by the way. I'm not a huge fan of Facebook. I think I've criticized Facebook an awful lot, and I don't think I've said a whole lot nice about Facebook over the years. But this transparency site is kind of fantastic. If you choose the change log, not only can you see what specific policy document revisions looked like at given dates, but you can see what changed from the most recent version to the previous version. And you go through there and you see a whole lot of red lines. There is a ton of red lines on their hateful conduct thing. And they change things wildly. And so many changes, so many changes, and specific ones where they call out that it is perfectly acceptable on the platform, on their platforms, Threads, Facebook, Instagram, etc., to say something like gay people are mentally ill, trans people are mentally ill. Like, you can say that now according to these rules, and we'll see how they're actually implemented over the coming days. But according to these rules, you can say all of that and then some, right? It's a ton of changes. They took red lines through so many things that would previously have gotten you banned off of Facebook and Instagram and the like. And now we're completely okay to say. I mean, this is a pretty major change. Zuckerberg then went over onto Threads, their Twitter X clone system, because you got to have at least 3 social media platforms per company, right? So they got Instagram, Facebook, and Threads. And Zuckerberg posted the following, quote, "I'm counting on these changes actually making our platforms better. I think community notes will be more effective than fact checkers. Reducing the number of people whose accounts get mistakenly banned is a good thing. People want to be able to discuss civic topics and make arguments that are in the mainstream of political discourse, etc. Some people may leave our platform for virtue signaling." Yeah, so a lot of people are going to virtue signal off of your platform and off of your company as well. But I think the vast majority and many new users will find that these changes make the products better. Interesting. Holy heavens. So they're getting rid of fact checking entirely and replacing it with a community note system like what X has. And it's not a perfect system. I've got some complaints about it, but overall, it's a hell of a lot better than what I've seen elsewhere. And what was previously on Twitter, that's for gosh darn sure. And the fact-checking system they had on Facebook was awful. It was horrible. The amount of censorship that was going on of just simple, commonly held ideas on Facebook was off the charts. It was crazy. I mean, half of my family were grumbling over the last year about, shoot, you can't talk about half of the things that happen in the world because Facebook won't allow it. And it won't allow you to have these commonly held ideas. Now, supposedly that's changing. Now, again, we'll see how this gets implemented over the coming days, but these are the rule changes and they really, really, really are happening. And then the and thens keep coming on this one. And then Mark Zuckerberg went on Joe Rogan. Holy heavens. You went on to Joe Rogan and he made it clear that the Biden administration, quote, screamed and cursed at Facebook and Meta employees demanding that they censor Americans. So, and apparently, according to Zuckerberg, the Biden administration directly and kind of indirectly, it would be a shame if this happened to you, threatened investigations of Facebook if they didn't comply. Right? I mean, this was basically the Biden administration acting like the mafia, forcing Facebook to do this. Now, this is the story Facebook is trying to sell, right? How much of this is totally legit or not? I don't know. How much of it is Facebook trying to save face because internally they're pretty much run by hard left extremists that like to censor people, right? Is that why they censored people? Or is it really that the government was forcing them to do it? I think very possibly it's a fair bit of both, realistically. But that's what we're seeing right now. Then, holy heavens, the cherry on top of all this, we got an Axios report that came out 7 hours ago, which is verified. This is real. And I'm going to read a bunch of it to you now. This report from Axios, exclusive, Meta kills DEI programs. Beautiful headline, by the way. Absolutely love it. I'm going to read a little bit from their article, but then I'm going to jump down because they published the whole memo. Quote, Mark Zuckerberg's Meta is terminating major DEI programs effective immediately, including for hiring, training, and picking suppliers, according to a new employee memo obtained by Axios. It's since been verified by everybody. Meta said it was changing course because the legal and policy landscape surrounding diversity, equity, and inclusion efforts in the United States is changing. That is absolutely true. Just to provide you a little bit of context here, not only are there Supreme Court and Upper Circuit Court rulings happening that are making it very clear that these DEI programs are extraordinarily illegal, but there are multiple pending lawsuits against other big tech giants for similar things, including that, like the Lunduke Journal has been reporting for over a year now, against both IBM and Red Hat, including from past employees and from state agencies who are suing IBM and Red Hat for extraordinarily racist, distinctly illegal DEI hiring, firing, and recruitment practices. All right, now back over to this Axios piece. I'm going to scroll down here all the way to the bottom. Not too far to the bottom, because you get to the bottom and then you just get into like all sorts of crazy random advertisements. All right, but they've got the full memo here. And I love it, by the way, when press outlets actually publish the whole gosh darn memo so you can read it, right? Because it's not just snippets. So I'm going to read it all to you so you know exactly what's going on here. Hi all. Again, this is a memo. Make this very clear. This is a memo internal to all Meta employees. So everyone got this. Hi all. I wanted to share some changes we're making to our hiring, development, and procurement practices. Before getting into the details, here are some important background to lay out. The legal and policy landscape surrounding diversity, equity, and inclusion efforts in the United States is changing. The Supreme Court of the United States has recently made a decision signaling a shift in how courts will approach DEI. It reaffirms long-standing principles that discrimination should not be tolerated or promoted on the basis of inherent characteristics. The term DEI has also become charged, in part because it is understood by some as a practice that suggests preferential treatment of some groups over others. You think? It's crazy. That's exactly what it is, and it's crazy racist, and it's crazy illegal. But I shall continue. At Meta, we have a principle of serving everyone. Okay. This can be achieved through cognitively diverse teams with differences in knowledge, skills, political views, backgrounds, perspectives, and experiences. Such teams are better at innovating, solving complex problems, and identifying new opportunities which ultimately help us deliver on our ambition to build better products that serve everyone. Just as an aside, just as a complete aside, many people keep repeating that through these diverse teams, however you define diverse, that those teams are somehow better at innovating and solving problems. I have not actually seen that to be the case. In fact, I've seen sometimes where a diverse team is better, and sometimes where a measurably diverse team is significantly worse. And I think we can all point to examples where DEI hires have caused dramatic failure. So stating that diverse teams are better at solving problems, that's made up gobbledygook. I'm not buying that for a second. I'm going to continue though. Quote, on top of that, we've always believed that no one should be given or deprived of opportunities because of protected characteristics, and that has not changed. Given the shifting legal and policy landscape, we're making the following changes. All right, now here's the meat and potatoes, because the rest of it is statement fluff. Here's what matters. Quote, on hiring, we will continue to source candidates from different backgrounds. Okay, that's meaningless, but fine. But we will stop using the diverse slate approach. This practice has always been subject to public debate and is currently being challenged. We believe there are other ways to build an industry-leading workforce and leverage teams made up of world-class people from all types of backgrounds to build products that work for everyone. Okay, stopping using a diverse slate approach is actually a really big deal. That effectively means that you're going to have to do away with certain quotas. Quote, we previously ended representation goals for women and ethnic minorities. Having goals can create the impression that decisions are being made based on race or gender. Well, because they are being made on. That's the whole point of having goals, is that decisions are being made on. Quote, while this has never been our practice, we want to eliminate any impression of it. All right, good way to cover your butt there. Quote, we are sunsetting our supplier diversity efforts within our broader supplier strategy. This effort focused on sourcing from diverse-owned businesses. Going forward, we will focus our efforts on supporting small and medium-sized businesses that power much of our economy. Opportunities will continue to be available to all qualified suppliers, including those who are part of the supplier diversity program. So basically what they're saying is this. Previously, they had an effort to have diverse-owned businesses, meaning like Black-owned businesses, meaning they said, we want to do business specifically with various businesses where the CEO or the owner meets certain criteria of objective, is a trans person, is a Black person, whatever, right? Whatever it is. They've since said, okay, we're not going to make that a criteria for working with other companies anymore. We're just going to try to work with small and medium-sized businesses. Beautiful. Good change. Good change. Part of me wants to criticize them for what they did previously because it was crazy, crazy racist and sexist and awful. But good change is good change. I want to high five good change. So high five to Meta and Facebook for that change. Let's just ignore the fact that you did awful things previously, and let's try to do good things going forward. Okay, Meta. Quote, instead of equity and inclusion training programs, we will build programs that focus on how to apply fair and consistent practices that mitigate bias for all, no matter your background. We will no longer have a team focused on DEI. Maxine Williams, who was heading that up, is taking on a new role at Meta focused on accessibility and engagement. What remains the same are the principles we use to guide us, blah, 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 blah. All right, so what we've got there is a significant change. It's not 100% perfect, but the amount of change they're doing here, including getting rid of their DEI team entirely, right? This is what a lot of people covered Microsoft as having done this last summer. Everyone said, oh, Microsoft fired their DEI team, but they didn't. Meta actually is. They're actually axing the team, and the few people they're keeping from it are getting reassigned to different divisions on totally different roles. Beautiful, amazing, glorious, absolutely fantastic. And this is part of a larger trend. And I don't blame Meta for going down this road, even if it's just for practical purposes, because they're afraid of the potential lawsuits, because the lawsuits are coming for them and every other company. Just look at what's happening to IBM and to Red Hat. Oh my gosh, it is huge. Now I want to turn over to the reaction that's happening with inside Meta and Facebook right now. This reporting from 404 Media is pretty solid on the details here. They got a few things a little off, but they're pretty solid on the quotes they got. I have verified that much of this is happening. Quote, this is their title. It's total chaos internally at Meta right now. It's a quote from one of their employees. Employees protest Zuckerberg's anti-LGBTQ changes. Now, I should call out that these are not anti-LGBTQ changes that are happening. The changes that Mark Zuckerberg announced, that Facebook announced, simply are basically saying that you can have conversations and that there will be a community note system in place that might disagree with any statements that a person made, but people will be allowed to have a conversation on a topic. It's basically saying that we are no longer going to restrict the speech of very common topics like, are trans people mentally ill? It's a fair topic to have. It's a point of view that the vast majority of Americans have, is that trans people it's a mental illness, right? The vast majority of Americans have that very simple point of view. That doesn't mean that they're evil, doesn't mean that trans people are bad, doesn't mean that we want to commit trans genocide. We just say that's what it is. It's a mental illness. Now, that conversation is supposed to now be allowed on Facebook. However, many employees are not feeling too positive about it. Quote, I am LGBT and mentally ill. One post by an employee on an internal Meta platform called Workplace reads, quote, just to let you know that I'll be taking time out to look after my mental health. Lots and lots and lots of employees internally are leaving the company or just really, really pissed and posting a lot to their workplace internal message board, basically, right? A member of the policy team told the employees in the thread that our core values have not changed. Quote, the change to our hateful conduct policy seek to undo the mission creep that has made our rules too restrictive and too prone to over-enforcement. We heard all about that, right? 5 current Meta employees spoke to 404 Media and said that many Meta employees are furious about the changes, an assessment that appears to be accurate based on the screenshots of several internal threads obtained by 404 Media. Now, I just want to say flat out, I have not seen these screenshots. I have, however, spoken to one internal Meta employee who has not shared the screenshots with me, but has provided his personal anecdote of what's going on over there. And and it jives exactly with what 404 Media is reporting, and this is a source that I have that has always been accurate in the past. So this does seem to be extraordinarily plausible and bordering on confirmed. Quote, "It's total chaos internally at Meta right now," one current employee told 404 Media. "The entire thread of comments shared is dissent towards the new policy, save for one leader repeating Zuckerberg talking points. I'd call the mood shock and disbelief," they added. Quote, "It's embarrassment and shame that feels self-inflicted, different than the mistakes the company has made in the past. Quote, no one is excited or happy about these changes. And obviously, the employees who identify as being part of the LGBTQ plus blah, 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 blah community are especially unhappy and feel the most unsupported in this. A small number of people are taking time off and are sharing that they are considering leaving the company due to this change." Another quote, "Morale of fellow queer employees is in the absolute beep. No surprising no one. I wish I could resign in protest, but I've already resigned." That goes on and on and on and on and on and on and on. Now, it doesn't stop there. That's not even the end of it all, because also happening today, and take this as you will, again, 404 pointed this out. They've been all over this story. Some of their reporting is a little bit weird and tainted and off, but overall, the reporting has been fairly accurate. Quote, "Meta deletes trans and non-binary messenger themes." Say what now? So here's what this is. Inside MSN Messenger, there are themes. You can apply themes to conversations. One of them is non-binary theme, and one of them is a pride flag theme. Those themes have been there since, I think, 2021. I was reading here. Yeah, I think they were there since 2021. They've been there for many years. As of today, they're gone. They've removed the non-binary and pride, trans, etc. themes, the LGBT whatever flag themes from MSN Messenger. Now, all of this is happening all at once. This is a mass change across the board. They're removing themes over here. They're adding people to their board of directors over there. They're changing fundamentally how they handle censorship, what speech they do or do not allow. They're getting rid of fact checkers. They're implementing a community note system. It's just one thing after another. And people are freaking out internally about all of this. Now, I wanted to share some thoughts that came from DHH, the guy who created Ruby on Rails, and he's also a director over at Shopify, and he's well known within the tech world. He posted a few statements over on X that I wanted to read all of you now, because they come from the point of view of someone who has undergone transformations inside tech companies, and this is his thoughts on it. Quote, "Meta takes another win by vanquishing all forms of DEI from the company, effective immediately. May the rest of the laggards in our industry swiftly follow. This was always the real structural racism. Merit is so back." And little woo, hands rock and roll sign. So I agree with DHH on this one wholeheartedly. Obviously, the real structural racism that so many people yelled about is exactly the stuff that it appears like Meta is tossing into the dumpster right now. At least that's what it looks like, and that's great. That is absolutely fantastic. And his statement that may the rest of the laggards in the industry swiftly follow, I completely agree with. It is fascinating to me, the companies that are focused on building a profit and maintaining profitability have continued to push these extraordinarily racist and, most importantly for their bottom line, extraordinarily illegal practices of DEI, these woke DEI policies. They go under a variety of different names, but they're always extraordinarily illegal and racist, and they result in lawsuits lots and lots and lots of lawsuits that could absolutely obliterate a company financially. It is truly amazing to me that they stick to that. Now, many companies still are. In fact, IBM and Red Hat are still sticking to their DEI policies, despite the fact that they're about to be sued into oblivion because of them. Microsoft is still sticking to these policies, and so many others are as well. DHH goes on to say, quote, Zuckerberg is ripping off the bandage. Speaking from experience, it would be smart money for Meta to make the pro-censorship camp an appealing offer to leave. These kinds of cultural resets work best when they're total. Now, what he's saying here is really simple. There are going to be people inside the organization of Facebook and Meta that are going to oppose this. They oppose they oppose free speech. They are pro-censorship, right? They are people who have been excitedly working with the President Biden regime to censor Americans, right? That was a goal of theirs. They've been excited about implementing both illegal and racist hiring and firing practices. Those people, many of them, are still working at Meta. Now, as long as those individuals are there inside the corporate structure, they're going to have an influence. Now, maybe Zuckerberg is so strong of a leader that he can keep them all in check, but why have to? Why need to do that? Things are going to go smoother if you get those people out. Now, many people within Meta may be thinking, well, but you got to replace them with someone first, and there's a process for hiring that, and where are you going to find? You don't need them. If the people, I'm telling you straight up right now, if the individuals in question are pro-censorship, are pro-racism, are pro-committing crimes in hiring and firing, they're putting the company at severe risk. You are better off without them no matter what else they bring to the table. Get rid of them. Get rid of them and keep going, right? Keep slogging forward. Look at X and Twitter as an example. When Elon Musk took over Twitter, what's the percentage that he finally ended up axing? Was it 70%, 80%, something like that? Kept working just fine. Now, you can make arguments about profitability of advertising revenue and various other issues, but in terms of keeping the system running, you don't need all the people you have at Meta. You just don't. It's a huge organization right now. If you chopped off 20, 30, 40, even 80%, your users would never notice. In fact, they might notice that it's nicer because there's a little bit less censorship. Rip the Band-Aid off fast. Get it done. Give them an incentive. Say, here, you know what? You really like the censorship. You like the racism. Here's a little bonus. Here's an extra few months salary. Get out. Here's a little severance. I agree with DHH on this one. It's a better move going forward. Now, we'll keep following this. Obviously, this is unfolding and developing as we go, but this is a massive, massive change. This is earthquake level big for the tech industry, because people are going to be looking around now and saying, what is happening? What are the case studies of companies who decide to go hard anti-DEI or go hard for DEI? What happens to them? Well, IBM and Red Hat go for DEI, massive lawsuits, negative press. It doesn't look good. It lowers morale overall. And most importantly, again, massive lawsuits. It's just not going to go well in the end. Meta is going the exact opposite direction. So companies are going to be looking and seeing what happens with Meta once all the chaos settles, because inevitably there's going to be, over the coming days, a flood of employees at Meta and Facebook coming out and doing tell-alls. I was internal and oh my gosh, the misogynists of Facebook, they've taken over and they want to implement racism again by getting rid of DEI, right? They're going to do extreme pro-DEI, pro-Marxism, pro-extreme left-wing tell-alls. That's just going to happen, right? But once that dust settles, how is it going to go? It's also going to be interesting because the timing, we're leading up to Inauguration Day. And the reality is, with all of these companies committing significant crimes in terms of censoring Americans with the assistance of at the threatened direction of the Biden administration, that's a huge problem. The Supreme Court's going to have to look at that at some point. It's a big, big problem. And when you've got all these things going on, if you're a big tech company, you kind of don't want to be under the scrutiny of of a new administration who's going to be looking around and saying, okay, who was censoring Trump and Trump supporters and Republicans and centrists and moderate Democrats and everyone else, and not allowing us to speak up? Who was censoring us? Who was committing crimes in hiring and firing of people based on a wide variety of immutable characteristics? Who was doing that? You don't want to be in those crosshairs, because you're gonna lose, right? They're going to get sued into oblivion. So I expect we're going to see more companies doing similar things in the days ahead. At least if they're smart. At least if they're smart. Now, again, though, we'll see how things go at Meta and Facebook over the next few days and few weeks, because these policies may be changing, but policies can change on a dime, and they could change back. So we're going to be watching really, really closely. There's a lot of different outlets doing a lot of reporting on this. Most of it is all verified. Everything we worked over today and went through just now is verified at this point, or close enough to be like, okay, this is accurate as far as we can tell, and there's no reason to not believe this information. So there we have it. I want to say thank you to all the Lunduke Journal subscribers. Go to Lunduke.com. There's links to where you can watch and listen on just about every platform. We're all over the place, all the good ones anyway, and some of the bad. And you can just click and enjoy it however you like it there. Podcasts and videos, it's all there. And if you want to support the work of the Lunduke Journal, you can subscribe. Again, it's all up at Lunduke.com. We don't take any money from big tech. We don't do any advertisements. You'll notice the first time we even talk about subscribing to anything is in the last 20, 30 seconds of every show. So you get through the whole show and there's no ads. There's none of that garbage until now. And the only thing we tell you is, hey, want to help out? Thanks, Lunduke.com. That's how it should be. It's glorious. Anyway, thank you to everyone who makes it possible. Could not do it without you. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, nerds and nerdettes across the inner tubes, I do declare, end broadcast.